Hello, welcome to this quick tutorial on how to create your first webhook proxy using webhooks.io. At this point, you should have registered for an account and verified your email address. If you need to create one, just go to webhooks.io website to get started. Let's log into our account. Once you log in, you are presented with the deliverability dashboard. By default, you will already have a default bucket created. Buckets are logical segmentations that can be used as you see fit to separate your webhook management. Most users create a bucket for each application that they manage. You can create these as needed or use the default bucket to start. We will use the default bucket for this tutorial. We are now on the bucket management page. Here's where we need to set up our first input. Inputs act as receivers or gateways for incoming webhook traffic. Click the Create New Input button to create a new one. Let's give the input a logical name that makes sense to us. For this one, let's call it Payment Gateway. If the webhook provider requires authentication, enter that information here. If you want to authenticate the request at the final destination server, you can do that later on. Enter the response that should be returned to the webhook provider. In most cases, this will be a 200 response. Let's save our input. This creates a unique gateway address or URL that will be entered when setting up your webhooks. Now let's create a destination to send this request to. Click the new destination under the input panel. Let's enter a destination label that makes sense to us. For this one, I'm going to write production server. Then enter the URL for the destination. We will use request bin to mimic our destination server here. We can now specify retry policies for this specific destination. For this one, we will choose a linear retry policy of no more than 10 retries, retried every 60 seconds. For authentication, you can now specify the authentication for your destination endpoint. This allows you to set a standard authentication method for all webhooks regardless of the source. We will choose pass-through for our test. If you would like to apply any created transformations, you can do that here, but for the scope of this tutorial, we will skip this step. You have a couple of extra options available. If you would like to receive an email alert upon failure of a request, you can enter one or more comma-separated email addresses here. Also, we provide a set of headers that can be added to the source request. Let's save our destination. Congratulations! You now have a fully functional webhook proxy set up and ready to use. Now, if we click our input, we can copy the gateway URL address. Let's use this to test our new proxy. So let's open up a terminal window, and I'm going to make a curl request to this URL mimicking an incoming webhook request. I'll send a couple pieces of data and make it a post request. After making my request, I receive a 200 that I specify when setting up the input. Message received is the response message that gets returned. Now let's check the other end. Let's refresh the request bin page and see what we received. Here's our request with the data that we sent, and also included are the specific headers that we set up or enabled for this request. Okay, now let's go back to the console and click on the dashboard. We can now see that our request made it successfully. So let's click the successful button to go to the logs. We can see that this request made it in a few seconds ago, and if we go and click the detail button, we can see the detailed response that got returned from request bin. And that's it. We're now on our way to 100% deliverability using webhooks.io. Thanks again for checking out this tutorial, and if you need further assistance, feel free to reach out to us at support@webhooks.io.